So, if you have seen, I did say I was going to do a mental health Q&A. And I guess here we go. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I hope y'all enjoy. So, obviously with the Tag Me United PSA that a bunch of wrestlers started, and with my own battle with mental health, I was actually inspired to do a mental health Q&A. So some people ask questions, and I'm going to answer them to the bestest of my ability. This should be interesting. Question number 1. How did you know that you had anxiety? So for me, I knew because I would always get overly nervous for a lot of things, and I would just see myself focusing on the wrong things. So at track, I would always focus on basically making my coach proud, and I never really cared about like what I ran or if I PR'd or not, or if I medaled. I would just be focused on like if my coach was happy, then I would be happy, or I would focus on I need to be the best girl on the team, so this time that I ran isn't good enough. And that would be probably the breaking point of my anxiety, and I would just basically see myself kind of like self-destructing. Like a normal race day for me, I would have 4 panic attacks. And that's a lot. That's a lot of panic attacks. So that's how I kind of knew. Plus, I would see like how my mental health was also affecting my everyday life, because it affected a lot of my friendships with people, and it also affected a lot of like my schoolwork. It affected track tremendously, because I've always been told that like I just never hit my peak because my anxiety ruined my track career, which is probably 100% true. But yeah, that is it's not fun. How did you know it was the right time to tell your coach? So I didn't. So I actually planned on, so I had my panic attacks from my coach for 7 months, which is a really long time. So my first panic attack was in October. Actually, the 5-year anniversary was the other day, which is really scary because it doesn't feel like 5 years. And I waited till May to tell him. I kind of knew it was the right time because I never wanted him to see me have a panic attack and him not know what it was. I wanted to be the person to be like, hey, like this is happening, I don't know what to do. And thankfully he completely understood. So I actually did a 50-page research paper on this. So the problem a lot with athletes and mental health is that coaches don't necessarily understand. They see it as like weak, because as an athlete you have to be super strong. You shouldn't be dealing with these problems. You should just be focused on like performing the game. But the whole thing is like athletes are people too. So luckily my coach very much understood, and when I told him 7 months later, and after a very emotional conversation between him and I, we were able to kind of adjust my coaching style. He coached me a lot differently than every other athlete. Like there were certain things he would tell people that he couldn't tell me or I'd break, or we'd have to have multiple conversations before races, so like he knew I was in the right state of mind. Or even the biggest thing is like he couldn't tell me what he wanted me to do. Like if he told me that he wanted me to run a 5:50 mile and I didn't run a 5:50 mile, I would have such a bad breakdown because I didn't do it. So he would stop telling me like what he would want me to do. He's like, just run. And whatever I did. What was the best coping mechanism for panic attacks? Wrestling. So I would actually stop wearing like my high school's gear to meet, and I would just put on a wrestling shirt because it would calm me down a little bit, and it would stop me from thinking like, oh my god, I'm about to race. So that definitely helped me. As I got into my senior year, having my 2 best friends definitely helped me as well, because they were there for every step of the way. For me also, I would always kind of listen to wrestling. So on the bus ride to meet, I would always play like my favorite pay-per-view or my favorite Rollins matches, or on my warm-ups I would listen to a Rollins interview, or I'd listen to my favorite Rollins promos that kind of hype me up a little bit. So wrestling definitely helped me with every panic attack, and it still does today. Like I know like when I'm having one, I can literally turn on whatever Rollins, whether it be a match or promo interview or whatever, and it's like, okay, everything's okay, we're gonna be fine. Take a breath and breathe. The other thing I've also realized, like not wrestling related, but the other thing I've realized is because I tend to focus on a lot of things I can't control, that coloring is actually my biggest coping mechanism. And thankfully for my birthday, a lot of my friends got me coloring books because they got the memo. So because when you're coloring, like you could control what you do, right? Like you could control how you're going to color this page, or you can control what you color, or if you go inside the lines, outside the lines. So since you can control all that, like it helps you calm down. So that's the other thing that's helped me too, which is super weird. And like I feel like such a child. And I was like, no, like, that's a good coping strategy. And I go, okay, like, if you guys are telling me, I guess I'm doing it right. Do your friends come to you for a lot of advice with mental health? They do. So the crazy thing for me, and one of my old teammates actually told me this after I graduated, that I was kind of the guinea pig, and that people saw how my coach reacted to me with my own mental health problems, and then when they saw that it was working and that he was very nice to me about it, then like other people started confessing and started to go to him to have similar conversations that him and I would have. But my friends all the time, like if they're stressed or whatever, or if they're super anxious, like they'll talk to me, and it seems like I'm very good at giving advice, and then I call myself a hypocrite because I'm like, wow, I should really listen to myself a hell of a lot more often. But yeah, so my roommate actually has really bad anxiety, like worse than me, and it seems like I'm giving her really good advice of like what to do and what not to do, but just because of like all the stuff my coach had taught me, and all the stuff like I've had multiple people teach me along the way, like my coach, my friends, my podcasting friends, they've definitely helped me. I mean, I've cried the bill more times in the past like 5 months than like anybody in the world. So yeah, I definitely see myself like giving a lot of good advice of like, everything's gonna be okay, let's try to focus on other things, and let's do this. That was a good question. I like that question. Was there ever a time that your coach added to your anxiety? Of course he did. So I would be lying if I said that he didn't do, like if he was always nice about it. Like him and I, especially my senior year, got into a lot of arguments, which actually ruined my senior year because him and I got into a lot of fights, and because we got into arguments a lot, I didn't trust myself to be open with him. So that ruined my senior year a lot, and there were things that he did that would very much add to my anxiety. So the thing about me with anxiety too is I don't like getting told negative things, because when I get told something negative about myself, I believe it. So he would start to tell me that I wasn't good enough to be on the team anymore, and he would say all of these horrible things about me, and it would lead me to have anxiety every single day at track. Like I go to practice, and this has never happened, I would go to practice and have like 2 panic attacks. I would go to meet, have double the panic attacks I would usually have, and I would like not even want to be around my coach at all, and like usually I'm like literally always near him. I would not want to be near him. I'd be like, I need to get away because it's not healthy for me. And luckily I survived, you know, but I would definitely say that he did add to it as well. But, you know, this is something like I always said, and I said this on a podcast too when I was asked about it, I choose to remember my coach as someone who's helped me a lot, because he listened to me when a lot of people didn't, and he was actually the first person to listen to my anxiety. Not my friends, not my parents, like he was the first one, and I will forever be grateful for that. So I choose to remember that side of him rather than the one that ruined my senior year, because I'm put on this earth to believe really good things and remember really good things about people, and I want to remember that version of him. So that's the him I choose to remember, and that's the him I will continue to preach about in every podcast, interview, whatever, whenever y'all ask me about my mental health or just ask about my life. Like, he's a good dude. He's definitely a good dude. And, you know, it was actually funny because we were texting about the 5-year anniversary the other day, and I was like, it's been 5 years, he goes, but look how much you've grown. Who else helped you at track with your mental health? Brian Nile. My 2 best friends were definitely there for me, and I think it's because all 3 of us had suffered from mental health issues, but because like I was very, very bad, I was more open with it than them. But the 3 of us kind of all banded together, and I give them a lot of credit because they had every reason to stop being my friend and leave me or whatever, but they didn't, because they knew I needed help, and they knew that if they left, they didn't know what was going to happen. But I give them a lot of credit because Brian, literally, I cried to Brian every single day. I freaked out to Brian every single day. And he was just there. And I think it's very funny that now he wants to be a therapist because he wants to help people like me. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And Nada just literally gives the best pep talks and is just like always in your corner and just the most supportive person on planet freaking Earth. And it's why actually my 50-page research page for mental health and athletes is actually dedicated to the 2 of them. Fun facts. What got you through your hardest moment? Oof. So I would say my hardest moment was when I was gonna get cut from track, obviously, and So working with Ricky Steamboat definitely helped me because he gave me really good advice, not listen to anybody else but myself. But wrestling definitely helps me. It still helps me today, like when I get anxious and stuff. And like I said, I know that I could always turn on like something Rollins or something wrestling, and like everything just changes. And like I just feel like my life just like everything pauses, and like the only thing in my world that's going on is like whatever's on the screen. And I don't know if maybe because wrestling's been there for me through a lot through my life, like through my dad with cancer, my dad losing his job, or everything with track or whatever, but because wrestling's always been there for me, I feel like it's just a safety net for me. And I've always made this argument too, like I've seen so many people go in and out of my life, but wrestling's the one thing that's always stayed, and that's why I'll always be so loyal to it. Because it was always there when I needed it. And I think that's the biggest thing why I want to get into the business, was because even though I'm not going to be in the ring, I want to make people forget about what they're suffering in their real life. And I feel like so many wrestlers say that too, like wrestling helped me get through this and this because everything paused and I was only focused on what's going on in the ring. And, you know, I think everyone in the business too. If I can do that for somebody and I can make somebody feel the way I felt when I was going through shit, then I feel like I'm successful in life. And I think that's 100% true, and I think that's the best thing about this business. Which is why I'm also excited they did this PSA. Like, yes. Mental health is important, guys. Like, don't think it isn't. It is 100 and 1,000% true. What are things that you suffer during your panic attacks? So, hyperventilation's a big thing. I very much forget to breathe. Like, I'll just sit there, and I'll be like, can't breathe, can't breathe, can't breathe. So, hyperventilation's a big one. I'll start shaking. It depends on crying, like it depends like what's actually going on, because sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Hot and cold flashes is another big one. I'll usually get really, really cold, like not so much the hot stuff, but like I always get like freezing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's 0 degrees. And I know that some people get physically sick when they have panic attacks too. That's only happened to me once. And I didn't get sick, I just felt nauseous. What advice would you give someone if they are going through mental health and they don't want to tell anyone about it? Telling someone about it helped me, even if it's not a trained professional. I'm obviously not a trained professional at all. I mean, like, I'm in a hoodie and frickin' soccer shorts. If it's a friend, a coach, a family member, whoever you feel comfortable with, opening up is probably the best thing. And it's something that my coach and I very much talked about too. Like, the first step to admit of having a problem is admitting you have one, and that was the biggest thing for me. Like I said, I hid it for 7 months, because for 7 months I was in denial that this was happening, and everyone around me knew it was happening. I knew it was happening in my heart. I didn't want to admit it. And when I had that conversation with him, it was probably the best 20 minutes ever, because he got it and he understood it. And I think that's the other important thing too. Not everyone's going to technically understand, but if you could have someone just be like, I will be here for you no matter what, then that's what counts. And I've changed my mental support group so much over the past 5 years. There's some people who've been in there from day one. There's some people that just got added 2 months ago. But having the most positive mental support group is probably the best thing, and I'm very grateful to have mine, and I'm very grateful that whenever I'm having a bad day, or I'm upset, or I'm stressed, or whatever, like, I can always turn to them, and I'm always very grateful that they didn't leave. Because I know that I'm always not the friend they need, but they accept who I am, they accept that I have this, and they accept the fact that one of their duties as my friend is to help me when I get like that. And I'm also very grateful that not only that, but they accept this dream of mine, and they know that when I do make it to whatever wrestling company is going to hire me, that they could look at on TV one day and say that their restaurant made it, and that's the super coolest thing. And that's basically it for me. So I was inspired by the Tag Being United PSA, which is super cool. Normalize talking about mental health, because everyone suffers from it and you're totally not alone. And the other thing I was inspired by was because like 5 years ago the other day was my first ever panic attack, and I was like, oh, maybe I should talk about this. I will say the craziest thing about that story is that I 100%, not even kidding you, my first panic attack was on a starting line of a race. I was on that starting line and I couldn't breathe. And I ran the race. I felt super weird. They started increasing, and I told my coach. Which also one of the other questions, like, did your coach know before you told him? No. He knew something was wrong because he knew I was acting different, but he didn't know what it was. And he figured it was one thing because something was going on in my personal life, so he figured it was that was bothering me, and then, like, you know, when that thing stopped or got better, he figured that I would be okay. But when I told him eventually what it was, he was like, oh, interesting. And I will also say too, like, I didn't even verbally tell him, I wrote it in a letter. And in that letter I wrote, it was a 4-page letter about just everything. And I'm very grateful for him. I'm very grateful for all that he's done. I'm grateful that I can still text him now, 3 years after. I'm not even that late anymore, and he's still there for me. And he's been one of the biggest supporters in my life, and I thank him. I know he's definitely not going to watch this, but in this rare case he does. I'm very thankful for him, but I think that he knows that, because I did tell him that the other day, and I tell him, like, I tell him very often, so I hope he feels that way, you know, like, that I'm grateful for him, even though I was an asshole to him. I'm very grateful. But that's it for me. I hope you all enjoyed. This video was very much all over the place, but I think I did a good job. And if you're one of the people in my mental health support group, thank you for always being there for me. And I couldn't be here doing this without any of you.